My daughter fell ill from lack of food, even though I sent money to my husband every month. One day, she called me crying, saying, "Mommy, call 911 immediately and come rescue me, please." My dad was the one who. Mariana held the phone in one hand while pressing her chest with the other, as if that could calm the tightness she felt inside. She had just ended a heartbreaking call, one that ripped away any semblance of peace. Sophia, her 8-year-old daughter, had sobbed, pleading for help, asking her to call 911 and begging her to rescue her from something that seemed worse than any nightmare. That plea, "Mommy, please come rescue me," echoed in her mind again and again, each repetition more gut-wrenching than the last. The restaurant kitchen where she worked was filled with noise, clanging plates, orders being shouted, steam and heat. But for Mariana, all of that was a distant echo. It was as if the world had stopped the moment she heard Sophia's voice break on the other end of the line. From the first day she had decided to leave her country to give her daughter a better life, she had done nothing but work to exhaustion to ensure she lacked nothing. Every month, she sent all the money she could to Carlos, her husband, to take care of Sophia. How was it possible that now her daughter was asking for help, as if she were living in a nightmare? That restaurant with its worn walls and white lights had been her home for years, the place where she forged her future with the sweat of her brow. She worked long hours without rest, driven solely by the desire to give her daughter what she herself had never had. And Carlos, her husband, had been her only support from afar. She trusted him to take care of Sophia, to always be there when she couldn't. But that call made it clear something terrible was happening at home. Mariana didn't wait another second. She grabbed her phone again and searched for the contact of one of her trusted friends in her country, Rosa, who was also a mother and neighbor to Carlos and Sophia. "Rosa, I need you to go to my house right now," Mariana said, trying to keep calm, but her voice betrayed the panic. "What's wrong, Mariana? Are you okay?" Rosa responded, concerned upon hearing the urgency in her tone. "I don't know, Rosa. Sophia called me. She was crying. She asked me to rescue her, to call 911. I don't know what's happening, but I have the worst feeling. I can't stand not knowing what's going on." Rosa was silent for a moment, then answered with determination. "I'll go right now. Don't worry, I'll find out what's going on." Mariana thanked her with a choked voice and hung up. She felt the urge to run, to take the first flight to be with her daughter, but she knew the process wasn't that simple. However, a new anxiety began to overtake her. Her instinct told her something was very wrong, that what Sophia had witnessed was much more than a simple scare. Each second felt like an eternity as she waited for Rosa's call. After what seemed like an eternity, Mariana's phone vibrated, and seeing Rosa's name on the screen, she answered immediately. "Rosa? What's happening? Are they okay?" Mariana asked desperately. Rosa's tone was low, almost fearful. "Mariana, I went to your house. I knocked several times, but no one answered. I decided to go in and, it's not easy to say, but I saw Sophia. She was alone in her room, staring blankly, not moving, barely responded when I spoke to her. She looks very bad, Mariana. She's thin, with dark circles under her eyes, as if she hasn't slept in days." Mariana felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Sophia, the joyful, curious girl she remembered, was now reduced to a shadow, and she couldn't even be there to hold her and tell her everything would be okay. "And Carlos? Where was he?" Mariana asked, trying to contain her anger and fear. "I don't know, but..." Rosa hesitated before continuing, "but I heard rumors. People say Carlos has been spending money on parties on women. I don't know how true that is, but I saw something that alarmed me. I saw an empty alcohol bottle in the living room and several bills scattered on the floor, as if there had been a fight." Mariana's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces upon hearing those words. How could it be that Carlos, the man she had trusted, was spending the money she sent, not on Sophia, but on selfish indulgences? Anger began to mix with pain, creating a whirlwind of emotions that she could barely control. "I can't believe it, Rosa. This isn't what I wanted for Sophia. I trusted him. I gave him everything. I worked day and night to make sure she lacked nothing. How could he do this to her? Mariana's voice trembled with anger and sadness. Rosa tried to calm her. Listen to me, Mariana. Sophia needs me right now. I'm going to stay with her until you can come. Maybe it's best if you seek legal help to protect her. We don't know how much Carlos has been neglecting her, but from what I've seen, she urgently needs help. Mariana nodded silently. She was determined. She paused and wiped her tears as she thought about her next move. Then she thanked Rosa and hung up. That night, after finishing her shift at the restaurant, Mariana frantically began searching for information on how she could claim custody of her daughter from abroad. She felt powerless and alone, but she knew she had to act quickly. Every passing second, she felt Sophia slipping further out of her reach. That same night, she decided to confront Carlos. She couldn't wait another minute without getting answers. She dialed his number and waited, her heart in her throat. After several rings, Carlos answered, his voice rough and annoyed. What do you want, Mariana? Do you know what time it is? He replied in an irritated tone. Mariana took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but her voice came out firm and full of rage. Carlos, tell me the truth. What's going on with Sophia? Why is she alone and sick while you're spending money on parties and who knows what else? Carlos was silent for a few seconds, and Mariana noticed a slight change in his tone when he replied, Don't worry so much. The girl is fine. Maybe she's a little weak because she's had trouble sleeping, but that's normal, right? Besides, it's none of your business what I do with the money. I have my own needs too, you know. The cynicism in Carlos's voice was the last straw for Mariana. You're irresponsible. Sophia shouldn't have to suffer because of your excesses. I left her in your care because I trusted you, Carlos, trusted that you would take care of her, that you'd give her the best. And now I realize I left her in the hands of someone who doesn't care. Listen to me carefully. I will do everything I can to take Sophia away from you. I won't let you keep ruining her life. Carlos laughed, a bitter and careless laugh that sent chills down Mariana's spine. Do whatever you want, Mariana. We'll see who wins this fight. But remember, you're not here. I'm the one with her. You're just the absent mother sending money from afar. Mariana felt as if those words were knives piercing deep into her soul. She knew Carlos was trying to manipulate her, make her feel guilty, but she couldn't deny there was a grain of truth in what he said. She had left Sophia to give her a better future, but at what cost? At the cost of her well-being? After hanging up, Mariana sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the weight of loneliness and guilt crushing her. But she also knew one thing for certain. She wasn't going to give up. She would do whatever it took to get her daughter out of that hell, even if it meant facing Carlos, the legal system, or any obstacle in her way. That night, with tears in her eyes and the determination of a desperate mother, Mariana began to plan her next step. She knew the battle wouldn't be easy, but her love for Sophia gave her a strength she had never felt before. Mariana woke up after a sleepless night, burdened by worry. Carlos's words still echoed in her mind. Do whatever you want. We'll see who wins this fight. She had spent hours researching legal options, seeking support, and trying to find a way to rescue her daughter from the hands of a man who, she now realized, had never had good intentions. Before leaving for work, she decided to make one last important call, a contact at the embassy who, according to a mutual friend, could guide her on the next steps. As soon as it was 8 in the morning, Mariana, with a trembling voice, explained her situation to the embassy emergency officer. Is it possible for me to regain custody of my daughter from here? She's in danger. I know something bad is happening to her, she said, trying to sound calm but unable to prevent her voice from revealing her desperation. The officer, named Andrea, listened carefully, then paused reflectively. Mariana, what you're describing is complicated, but not impossible. First, you need to gather all the evidence you can, proof of negligence, witnesses, anything that shows your daughter is at risk. Then, we could consider filing a report from here and requesting intervention from social services in your home country. Andrea paused before continuing, her tone becoming increasingly kind. I know this is difficult, but everything you do now needs to be well thought out. You must protect yourself and, above all, your daughter. If you need legal help, the embassy has resources we could offer." Mariana felt that, though small, a glimmer of hope had appeared in the darkness of her situation. She thanked Andrea and hung up. She knew that now it depended on her to gather the evidence and testimonies needed, and for that, she would rely on Rosa and others who knew what was happening. Throughout the day, as she worked, her mind constantly drifted to memories of Sophia, to the last time she hugged her before leaving, promising that her sacrifice was for a better life. Guilt gnawed at her soul every time she remembered Carlos's words, accusing her of being an absent mother. However, she also knew that every sacrifice and every day away from Sophia had been for love and commitment. It was time to show Carlos that a mother stops at nothing when it comes to protecting her child. At the end of the day, Mariana called Rosa again, who had continued visiting Sophia after their last conversation. Rosa answered quickly, her tone filled with urgency. "Mariana, you have to do something. Today I stopped by to see Sophia after school, and she was alone, sitting in the kitchen, eating a little cold rice. It looks like Carlos didn't even bother to prepare something for her. When I asked how she was, she barely murmured that she wanted to sleep." Mariana felt a lump in her throat. "Rosa, do you think you could get proof of what's happening? Photos, something I could use to demonstrate Carlos's negligence. I have to get her out of there as soon as possible." Rosa agreed, and her voice reflected the same indignation Mariana felt. "I'll do what I can. I've even talked to some neighbors. Many have noticed Carlos's strange behavior, and more than once they've seen Sophia alone, unsupervised. It's only a matter of time before we have enough evidence." The conversation with Rosa gave Mariana a glimmer of hope, but she knew she needed more. The situation was urgent, and every second counted. After hanging up, she sat in front of her computer and began to write a document detailing every instance of negligence and abuse that Carlos had committed against Sophia. It was painful to put her suspicions into words, but she knew those lines could be the key to getting her daughter out of that place. That night, as she was about to go to bed, Mariana received an unexpected message. It was from Sophia. The girl had found a way to write to her using a phone at home and sent a brief and heartbreaking message. "Mommy, when are you coming? I'm scared." Mariana felt her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces reading those words. She took the phone and replied immediately, trying to sound as calm as possible. "Soon, my love. Mommy will be there soon. I just want you to stay strong, okay? I'm going to help you." Sophia replied with another message, this time shorter. "I miss you. Daddy is not good." Reading these words, Mariana felt anger and sadness mix in her chest, like a knot that couldn't be untangled. However, she couldn't afford to fall apart. Sophia needed her stronger than ever. That same night, she continued working on the document, recording every message from Sophia, every testimony she had received, and every detail of her plan to reclaim custody of her daughter. The next morning, Mariana contacted Andrea at the embassy again, this time with some preliminary evidence. Andrea promised she would review everything she sent and help speed up the complaint process. The hours passed slowly, and Mariana felt each minute stretch as she waited for a response. Finally, Andrea called back. "Mariana, I reviewed what you sent me, and we've already sent a request for assistance to the authorities in your country. I recommended that they investigate your daughter's situation and Carlos's behavior. They should respond shortly." Mariana breathed a sigh of relief, although she knew there was still a long way to go. That day at work was torture, her mind divided between her duties and the constant fear of what might be happening at Carlos's house. Just the thought of Sophia alone and afraid was enough to keep her on edge. In the evening, while she was reviewing Sophia's messages once again, she received a call from Rosa. "Mariana, I just found out something." Rosa's voice was tense. "Today a neighbor heard a fight at Carlos's house. Apparently, he was with someone, another woman, and the argument got out of control. The neighbor heard yelling and sounds of blows and finally saw the woman leave, crying and covered in scratches." Mariana felt anger burn within her. Carlos was not only neglecting Sophia, but he was also bringing strangers into the house, putting her in dangerous situations. She couldn't allow her daughter to continue being exposed to that environment. "This is enough, Rosa. I'm going to do everything in my power to get Sophia out of there as soon as possible. No one is going to stop me." Rosa, determined to support her friend, promised she would continue gathering testimonies and additional evidence. "Mariana, I know this is painful, but you're doing the right thing. Sophia needs someone to truly care for her. I'll make sure that everyone who knows something is ready to speak when the time comes." As the days passed, Mariana kept in constant contact with Andrea and Rosa as the investigations progressed in her country. Every time Carlos called to try to manipulate her, Mariana felt less fear and more determination. Her love for Sophia drove her, giving her the strength she needed to face the situation without hesitation. Finally, one evening, she received the call she had been waiting for. Andrea confirmed that the local authorities had enough evidence to intervene. Mariana's plan was in motion. In a matter of days, Sophia would be taken out of that hell and be safe. Mariana hung up, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. She knew the battle wasn't won yet, but for the first time, she felt she was close to rescuing her daughter. Mariana sat in front of the phone, her gaze fixed on the screen as she waited for news from Andrea and the authorities in her country. Every passing second, she felt the weight of her own breath, deep and uneven. She knew that, within hours, the plan to rescue Sophia would be set into motion. Even so, the fear and anxiety were so intense they seemed to steal her breath away. As evening fell, her phone rang and Andrea's name appeared on the screen. Mariana answered immediately, feeling her heart pound. "Mariana, everything is ready," said Andrea, with a mix of seriousness and relief in her voice. "The authorities have approved the order to remove Sophia from her father's home. We're mobilizing tonight." Mariana closed her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to absorb what Andrea had just told her. The possibility of seeing her daughter again, of holding her and protecting her, gave her strength, but she also knew that there was one last obstacle: Carlos. She knew all too well her ex-husband's manipulative and prideful personality. She knew he wouldn't accept the situation without a fight. "Thank you, Andrea," Mariana replied, her voice breaking. "You have no idea what this means to me. It's the least we can do, Mariana. You've been an unstoppable mother. Now it's time for Sophia to be with you. Stay close to your phone. The authorities will contact you once the situation is resolved." She hung up, and for the first time in weeks, Mariana allowed herself to cry. They were tears of relief, of pent-up pain finally finding a bit of calm. But her hope was fragile. She knew that until Sophia was safe, she couldn't let her guard down. Meanwhile, in her country, tension filled Carlos's home. The police had arrived with a court order and some social workers. When Carlos opened the door and saw the officers, his expression immediately changed, from confusion to controlled fury. "What does this mean?" he demanded, trying to maintain a defiant posture. "You have no right to barge into my home like this. I haven't done anything wrong." One of the officers, a tall man with a calm voice, showed him the court order. "Sir, we have evidence of neglect, and we're here to take the minor into the temporary custody of the state. We don't want to make this difficult, but we ask for your cooperation." Carlos felt his hands tremble with anger, but he tried to keep his composure. He knew that any aggressive act could worsen his situation, and for a moment, he looked toward the back of the house, where he knew Sophia was likely listening to everything. "You're not just going to take my daughter like this. You have no idea what you're doing," he spat, trying to buy time while he figured out how to stop them. However, the officers remained firm, and the social worker accompanying them stepped forward. "Sir, please think about your daughter's well-being. This is not final, but right now, she needs to be in a safe environment where she can receive the help she needs." Carlos clenched his fists and finally realized he had no other choice. Frustrated, he stepped away from the door and allowed the officers and the social worker to enter. Sophia was in her room, sitting on the edge of her bed, her eyes tired and her skin pale. When she saw the officers, the young girl looked at them with confused eyes. unable to fully understand what was happening, but her instinct told her that something was about to change. The social worker approached her, speaking in a soft and kind tone. "Hello, Sophia. My name is Marta. I'm here to help you, sweetheart. You don't need to be afraid. We're going to take you to a safe place." Sophia nodded slowly, but her eyes filled with tears. She was only 8 years old, but in her short life, she had learned to fear her father's anger and rejection. She looked up at Marta with a mix of fear and hope. "Can I see my mommy?" she whispered. Marta knelt down to her level and smiled tenderly at her. "Yes, Sophia. That's what we're trying to do. We're going to take you to her." Sophia felt a small glimmer of hope that made her heart, weighed down for weeks, beat strongly. She clung to that promise as Marta helped her pack some of her things and handed her a small backpack. From the door, Carlos watched the scene, fighting against his own resentment. For a moment, it seemed he would approach her, but the anger and shame of defeat kept him from taking that step. He knew that all of this was the consequence of his own actions, though he wasn't ready to admit it. Finally, he simply turned his back and closed his eyes, unable to bear the pain he had caused himself. A few hours later, Mariana received a call from Andrea, informing her that Sophia was on her way to the airport, where she would meet a social worker who would accompany her during the flight. The news filled Mariana with indescribable happiness. She felt all the knots in her body loosen, all the fears and anxieties that had tormented her for so long finally fading. At last, Sophia was safe. Mariana spent the day preparing her small apartment to welcome her daughter, cleaning and organizing every corner meticulously, as if these details could make up for the time they had been apart. She placed photos, toys, and decorated the room with details she knew would make Sophia happy, reminding her that she was home, in a place where she would always be loved and cared for. As night fell, Mariana arrived at the airport and stood in front of the international arrivals gate. Each person who emerged increased her nerves, her hope, her longing. Finally, amid the flow of passengers, she saw her. Sophia was walking hand in hand with Marta, her small face tired, but her eyes lit up when they met her mother's. Mariana ran to her, and as soon as they were close enough, she knelt to embrace her. Sophia threw herself into her arms, holding her tightly as if she feared that if she let go, everything would disappear. Mariana cradled her against her chest, letting the tears flow uncontrollably, feeling that each tear took away some of the pain she had accumulated over those months of struggle. "Mommy, I was so scared." "I thought you wouldn't come," Sophia murmured, her voice breaking. Mariana stroked her hair and placed a gentle kiss on her head. "Never, Sophia. I would never leave you alone, my love. Now you're home with me. Here, you will always be safe." Sophia smiled weakly, and although her small body showed the marks of neglect, Mariana felt that this was the beginning of her healing, a slow but love-filled process. She held her daughter's hand, and as they left the airport, she embraced her tenderly, as if she could erase every wound, every painful memory. Once home, Sophia began exploring the place, her curious eyes taking in every detail of her new room. Mariana watched her from the doorway, not daring to interrupt the moment. Finally, Sophia approached her and, with a soft but relieved voice, asked, "Can we stay here forever, Mommy?" Mariana nodded, her eyes shining with love. "Yes, my love. We'll be here together, forever." That night, as she tucked her daughter in and watched her fall asleep, Mariana felt a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. She knew there were still wounds to heal and that the process wouldn't be easy, but she also knew that every step she had taken, every sacrifice, had been worth it. She had her daughter back, and with her, a reason to rebuild her life with love and hope. The promise of a future together marked the end of a nightmare and the beginning of a new life, one in which Sophia would always be safe, and where a mother's love would remain an invincible force, an eternal flame that would never cease to shine. Hours later, Mariana woke up at dawn, surrounded by the quiet and soft silence of her small apartment. She turned her head and, for a moment, her eyes rested on Sophia's bed, where the girl slept deeply, with a look of peace on her face that Mariana hadn't seen in a long time. Mariana felt a wave of relief as she remembered that, finally, they were together, and that the fear that had consumed her days and nights was now beginning to fade. As she prepared breakfast, she heard the gentle creak of small footsteps behind her. Sophia appeared at the kitchen door, rubbing her eyes with one hand and looking at her mother with a mix of shyness and newly regained trust. Mariana smiled, knowing that their relationship needed time to heal, but she was determined to make Sophia feel safe and loved like never before. "Good morning, my love," Mariana said with a warm smile. "Did you sleep well?" Sophia nodded, slowly approaching the table. Her eyes shone with a blend of hope and relief that she was just beginning to process. "Yes, Mommy. I slept very well." Sophia paused, looking around the kitchen. "It's been a long time since anyone made me breakfast." Mariana felt a lump in her throat. The fact that her daughter had, in such a short time, learned to accept the absence of basic care broke her heart. But this time, she wouldn't let sadness hold her back. Instead, she crouched down to Sophia's level and gently stroked her cheek. "Well, from now on, I promise we'll have breakfast together every day. We're going to create new memories, Sophia. Here, where you will always be the most important." Sophia smiled, and though her face still showed traces of tiredness and vulnerability, Mariana could see a spark of excitement and trust begin to bloom in her eyes. In the weeks that followed, Mariana and Sophia worked together to build a routine that would bring them the stability and affection they both needed. Mariana rearranged her work to spend more time with Sophia, supporting her at each step of her adjustment process. She enrolled Sophia in a nearby school, and every morning she held her hand to the door, saying goodbye with a kiss and words of encouragement. Sophia, although shy at first, soon started making new friends, and little by little, her laughter once again filled their home. One afternoon, while picking up Sophia from school, the teacher approached Mariana and smiled kindly. "Hello, Ms. Mariana. Sophia is a lovely girl and is making a great effort to adapt. But I've noticed that, at times, she seems withdrawn, as if something is bothering her. Have you considered speaking with a child therapist?" Mariana listened to the teacher's words attentively. She had been focused on giving her daughter love and stability, but she understood that the traumas Sophia had experienced wouldn't easily fade. She needed something more, a professional to help her process everything she had been through. "Yes, I've been thinking about that," Mariana replied, grateful for the teacher's concern. "It's hard to accept everything my daughter has gone through, but I know she needs someone who can help her express what she feels inside. I'll do everything I can to ensure she gets the support she needs." The next day, Mariana sought out a child therapist specializing in trauma. When she explained the situation, the professional, Dr. Isabel Gomez, welcomed her with empathy and understanding that reassured Mariana. "Mariana, what Sophia has been through is undoubtedly something no child should have to endure," Dr. Isabel said. The fact that she was exposed to such a difficult situation and witnessed violent acts has deeply affected her. However, with time and the right support, children have an incredible capacity to heal. The key will be to help her process her emotions in a safe environment. Mariana nodded, grateful and hopeful. The next day, she took Sophia to the first session. The girl, although initially shy and a bit scared, gradually began to feel more comfortable in the office. Dr. Isabel invited her to express herself through drawing, an activity that helped Sophia start revealing her thoughts and emotions more freely. After a few sessions, Mariana noticed significant changes in her daughter. Although there were moments when Sophia withdrew, at other times she appeared more confident and calm. One afternoon, after a session, as they walked home, Sophia stopped and looked at her mother with a serious expression. "Mommy, in therapy, I told Dr. Isabel that I saw something very ugly. Something that scared me a lot." Mariana felt her heart race. She knew Sophia had witnessed things no child should see, but hearing her talk about it was different. It was the confirmation of fears she had silently harbored. Do you want to tell me, Sophia? Only if you feel ready. Sophia nodded slowly, and her eyes filled with tears as she looked at the ground. One time, Daddy was with a lady. They fought, they yelled a lot, and then. Sophia began to sob, and Mariana hugged her, giving her all the reassurance her small body could absorb. I hid in the room, Mommy, but I could hear everything. I don't know what happened after, but the lady never came back. Mariana felt a mix of anger and pain that left her speechless. Carlos, her husband, the man she had trusted, had not only emotionally harmed her daughter, but had also exposed her to such a grave and frightening situation. But she didn't let her anger take over the moment. Sophia needed love and protection, not her hatred. My love, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. But now you're here with me, and I promise you'll never have to see something like that again. No one will hurt you, and I will always protect you. Sophia hugged her tightly, and although the girl's tears continued, Mariana felt that, in that moment, a new promise was sealed between them. No matter what the past had taken from them, from now on, she and Sophia would build a life full of peace, trust, and love. As the days passed, Sophia began to heal slowly. Therapy became an essential pillar for her recovery, and Mariana witnessed her daughter regaining her light, that spark of life that fear and neglect had stolen. Mariana also sought help for herself, understanding that her own strength needed renewal and that she would need to heal her own wounds to give Sophia the love and support she deserved. In time, Mariana began receiving news that Carlos faced charges of child neglect and assault, and he would be tried for his actions. Although this part of the story was difficult to face, she knew it was necessary to close the cycle. Knowing that the man who had caused so much suffering would not go unpunished was a relief that gave her strength to move forward. One evening, while they were both at home, Sophia approached Mariana and took her hand. Mommy, are we going to be together forever? Mariana leaned toward her daughter and, with a gentle smile, stroked her hair. Yes, my love. Forever. Because the love between a mother and daughter is the strongest thing there is. No one will separate us or harm you. And in this home, you will always be safe. Sophia smiled, and in her eyes shone a new certainty, a peace that was beginning to bloom. The nightmare had finally been left behind, and though recovery would be a long process, both were determined to rebuild their life together. In that shared promise, Mariana and Sophia found the strength to move forward and create a story filled with hope and love, a story that now belonged only to them. Everything seemed to be going well in Mariana and Sophia's life. Months after the rescue, they had begun to find a routine where love and peace became essential parts of their days. Sophia, with the help of therapy, was starting to leave the shadows of her past behind, and Mariana watched with relief as her daughter regained her laughter and spontaneity. Each day that passed, Sophia seemed calmer, more secure, and Mariana felt that, finally, the nightmare was receding. However, in the quiet of their new life, a danger lurked in the shadows. What Mariana didn't know was that Carlos, after facing charges in his country, had managed to get out on parole and decided to escape north, crossing the border with the help of coyotes. His obsession with Mariana and resentment over what he considered a betrayal drove him to make the journey. He couldn't stand the thought that Mariana had left him, taken Sophia, and built a life without him. In his twisted, self-justifying mind, Mariana had to pay for humiliating him. Carlos had managed to cross the country, evading authorities and hiding in neighborhoods and clandestine shelters, until he finally discovered where Mariana and Sophia were. For weeks, he remained in the shadows, watching them from a distance, calculating each of their movements. He followed them from work to the park, from the park to school, studying their routines and waiting for the perfect moment to act. One day, in the middle of an ordinary week, Mariana took Sophia to school as always, kissing her on the forehead and saying goodbye with a calm smile. "Take care, Sophie. I'll see you in the afternoon, okay?" she said tenderly. "Yes, Mommy. I love you so much," Sophia replied, smiling and hugging her before going into school. Mariana watched as her daughter crossed the playground and entered the building, making sure she was safe before leaving. But without her knowledge, Carlos was nearby, watching them from the street corner, his face hidden under a cap and dark glasses. He had waited a long time for this moment and was prepared to do whatever was necessary to settle his score with Mariana. That day, the school's doorman, distracted and unsuspecting, didn't notice when Carlos approached the building. He went directly to Sofia's classroom as if he were a familiar face there. In a firm and convincing voice, he said he was there on behalf of the mother to take the girl to an urgent appointment. The teacher, confused and surprised, tried to question him, but Carlos appeared calm and confident. "I'm Sofia's father. Her mother couldn't come, so she asked me to take her," he said with a serene expression, although his eyes held something dark that the teacher couldn't quite interpret. Not knowing what to do, the teacher agreed, and Carlos took Sofia's hand. The girl, at first, felt confused and frightened, but seeing Carlos there, she didn't know how to react. Carlos led her to the exit, and she followed him, still not fully understanding what was happening. "Why are you here, Daddy? Where's Mommy?" Sofia asked, her voice trembling. Carlos looked at her and gripped her hand tightly, leaving no room for doubt. "Don't worry, Sofia. Mommy knows you're with me. We're going for a walk. She'll meet us later." Sofia wanted to believe him, though a feeling of unease crept over her. Something about the way Carlos looked at her, the way his fingers dug into her wrist, told her that something was wrong. But being only a child, she didn't know how to react and let herself be led, hoping that somehow everything would be okay. Hours later, when Mariana arrived at school to pick up Sofia, she was met by the teacher, who had an uncomfortable expression on her face. "Mrs. Mariana, Sofia already left with her father, as you requested," she said, not noticing the immediate change in Mariana's expression. Mariana's world stopped in that instant. She felt her body freeze as the teacher's words echoed in her mind. My what?" she stammered, feeling her legs shake. "No, it can't be. He wasn't supposed to be here." The teacher stepped back, surprised and confused. "I'm sorry, but he said he was her father. He seemed very sure and mentioned that you had authorized him." "I didn't think that." The teacher couldn't finish her sentence as she saw the horror on Mariana's face. Mariana felt a panic she had never experienced before. She ran out of the school, her mind clouded by terror. She didn't know where to go, but her instincts drove her to search every corner, every street, every place where Carlos could have taken Sofia. No. Oh my God, no," she murmured repeatedly, her breathing quickened, while she tried to find a number in her phone, someone who could help her. In a moment of clarity, she called the police and reported her daughter's kidnapping, explaining everything in a choked but clear voice. She also called Dr. Isabel, Sofia's therapist, to explain the situation and ask for emotional support. Hours later, as the authorities began their search, Mariana sat on a bench, exhausted and filled with pain, waiting for some news. Finally, Dr. Isabel arrived and sat beside her, hugging her as she tried to calm her. "Mariana, we're going to find Sofia. The police are doing everything they can. I know this is a nightmare, but you have to be strong. Sofia needs you now more than ever." Mariana nodded, trying to control the torrent of emotions that overwhelmed her. "Why, Isabel? Why did he do this?" "He's using her to hurt me, to get revenge. I don't know what more he wants from us. I just want Sofia to be safe." Dr. Isabel took her hands, looking at her with compassion. "Carlos is a broken man, Mariana. And often, when someone feels powerless, they use those around them to regain a sense of control. This isn't your fault. You did what you needed to do. You took Sofia out of a dangerous situation, and he can't handle that. But we're not going to let him win. Sofia will come back to you, I promise." Mariana nodded, letting Isabel's words fill her with a faint hope. She looked up at the sky, whispering a prayer, begging for her daughter's safety. Love and pain mingled in her heart, and only one certainty kept her standing: she wouldn't give up. She would fight with every fiber of her being to bring Sophia back and finally end the threat that Carlos represented in their lives. Mariana spent the whole night awake, sitting in the waiting room at the police station, her eyes fixed on the door, hoping to see an officer walk in with news about Sophia. Every minute felt eternal. Her mind replayed every word from her call to the police, every face she had spoken to, and every place she had searched for her daughter. The helplessness and fear mingled in her chest, making her feel like she was on the verge of breaking down. Dr. Isabel stayed by her side, holding her hand, a gesture Mariana deeply appreciated. She was the only person who gave her a moment of respite amid the despair. Isabel understood her pain and offered words of support that kept her grounded in reality. Finally, one of the officers, Lieutenant Ramirez, entered the room and approached them. His face showed a mixture of seriousness and empathy, as if he, too, understood the weight of the situation. Mariana stood up immediately, her eyes full of hope and fear. "Have you found anything?" she asked, her voice trembling with tension. Ramirez nodded slowly. "Yes, we received a lead on her whereabouts. A surveillance camera spotted your ex-husband and Sophia at a bus station on the outskirts of the city. It looks like he was trying to move from place to avoid being found, but he didn't anticipate the reach of our search system. The teams are heading toward the area." Mariana felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Knowing there was a concrete lead was a step toward recovering Sophia, but she also feared what Carlos might do. It was clear he didn't care about his daughter's well-being. He just wanted to use her as a weapon to make her suffer. "Can I go with you?" she asked, the urgency in her voice more evident than ever. Ramirez shook his head, his tone firm but understanding. "It's best if you stay here, ma'am. We have agents specialized in these cases, and the last thing we want is to put you in danger. But I promise we'll do everything to bring your daughter back safely." Mariana nodded, though every fiber of her being wanted to be there, to make sure Sophia was all right. She sat back down next to Isabel, breathing deeply as she tried to calm her mind. She knew she had to stay strong, that Sophia needed her to be whole when they reunited. Hours passed, and with each minute, the tension became more unbearable. Mariana could barely speak. The silence in the waiting room was broken only by Isabel's occasional murmurs of encouragement. Finally, near dawn, the station's phone rang. Ramirez answered, nodding as he listened to the words from the other end. When he hung up, he approached Mariana with an expression that was half relief, half concern. "We have good news. We found Sophia and have her in our custody. She's safe and sound, and they're bringing her back here now." Mariana felt a wave of relief wash over her. The feeling was so overwhelming that tears poured from her eyes uncontrollably. Thank you, God," she murmured, covering her face with her hands as Isabel gently embraced her, sharing her relief. However, Ramirez cleared his throat, and Mariana knew there was more. "Carlos tried to resist," Ramirez continued, his tone revealing that the outcome had not been peaceful. "There was an altercation, and our officers had to use force to subdue him. He's in custody, and this time he'll be charged with kidnapping, along with the other charges he already faced. He won't get out of this easily." Mariana nodded, feeling a cold sense of peace knowing that Carlos would no longer have the chance to get near them. It was over. The fear that had haunted them for so long was finally under control, and now nothing would stop Sophia and her from moving forward without the shadow of that man in their lives. Half an hour later, a female officer entered the room holding Sophia's hand. The little girl's face was pale, and her eyes were filled with confusion, but upon seeing her mother, her eyes filled with tears. Mariana ran to her, hugging her tightly, feeling her daughter's warmth, her smell, her presence. In that embrace, all the pain and fear seemed to dissolve. "Mommy, I thought I'd never see you again," Sophia sobbed, clinging to her with desperation. Mariana stroked her, kissing her forehead and murmuring words of love. "I'd never leave you, Sophia. Never, my love. Everything's okay now. No one will separate us." The little girl nodded, snuggling into her mother's arms, and Mariana stayed there, wrapping her with every fragment of love she could give. She knew the trauma of this experience wouldn't disappear immediately, but she was determined to do whatever was necessary for Sophia to heal, to regain her peace. Hours later, back at home, Mariana and Sophia rested together. Though the exhaustion and pain of what they'd been through were still present, there was a feeling of relief and hope. They both understood that from that moment on, they could live without the constant fear of Carlos's presence. That night, as Sophia slept deeply beside her, Mariana stayed awake, watching her and thinking about everything they had gone through. The peace filling the home was new and fragile, but real. She looked up at the ceiling, grateful to have her daughter safe and sound, to have the opportunity to build a future together, one full of love, respect, and, above all, freedom. In time, Mariana and Sophia's life regained the peace they had longed for. That terrible, exhausting experience had left scars, but it had also shown them the strength they possessed. They both held on to that lesson, using each moment of calm and happiness to heal the wounds Carlos had left behind. Each day was an opportunity to rebuild their lives, now free from fear. In the weeks following that incident, Mariana focused on helping Sophia return to a peaceful life. She knew the process wouldn't be easy and that Sophia would need time to overcome the effects of her experience, but she also trusted in the love and support they shared to heal. One afternoon, as they walked together through the park near their home, Sophia stopped and looked at her mother with a serious yet calm expression. "Mommy, do you think I'll ever stop being afraid?" she asked in a soft, sincere voice. Mariana knelt down to be at her daughter's level and took her hands. "Yes, my love. You have a very strong heart, and in time, the fear will fade. But you don't have to face it alone. I'll be with you every step of the way, and whenever you need to talk or just feel safe, I'll be here." Sophia nodded, as if those words were enough to ease the weight of her fears. Mariana's eyes filled with pride and tenderness. Sophia had been so brave, facing things no one her age should have to face, and yet, there she was, with the resilience of someone who had chosen to move forward. The days passed, and Mariana saw how Sophia's laughter became more frequent, how her energy began to shine again, and how each day she seemed more confident and secure. Mariana also understood that life was giving them a second chance, and she promised herself she wouldn't let the past take away a single moment of happiness. They started exploring the city together, discovering new places, and sharing moments that would become the foundation of their future memories. For Mariana, each small step of Sophia's recovery was a victory. The first time she slept through the night without waking up scared, the first time she played with friends without fear, and the first time she told her mother she no longer thought about her father, were milestones in the healing process that filled Mariana with hope. Months later, during one of their regular visits to Dr. Isabel, Sophia showed a drawing she had made at home. It was a picture of her and her mother holding hands, surrounded by flowers and a clear sky. "What does this drawing represent, Sophia?" Dr. Isabel asked, observing the details closely. "It's my new life with Mommy," Sophia replied, with a sweet smile. "Before, I felt like everything was dark, and I was scared, but now I feel like I can see colors and be happy again. Because I know Mommy will always be with me." Mariana felt her heart swell with gratitude and emotion. Those words were proof that all the pain and sacrifices had been worth it. She had managed to give Sophia what she deserved, a life filled with love, stability, and freedom. As they left the session, Mariana and Sophia walked home hand in hand, enjoying the fresh air and the sound of birds. Mariana looked at her daughter, and while she knew the past would always be part of their story, she also knew it wouldn't define them. They had built a solid, beautiful present, and with it, a future full of possibilities. "Mommy, do you think we'll always be together?" Sophia asked, looking at her with a mix of innocence and hope. Mariana smiled and nodded. "Yes, Sophia. We'll always be together because the love we have is stronger than any fear or sadness. The important thing is that you never forget that you're a strong and brave girl, and from now on, every day is a new chance to be happy." Sophia smiled, and that smile reflected all the peace and confidence she had regained. That moment was etched into Mariana's memory as a testament to the life they had built together, a reminder that although they had faced dark times, their love and strength had led them into the light. That night, as she tucked Sophia in and watched her close her eyes with a look of peace, Mariana knew they had finally found their home in the peace and love they shared. And in that tranquility, they allowed themselves to dream, knowing the future that awaited them was fertile ground for hope and joy. What did you think of this story? Tell us in the comments. What would you do in a similar situation? We invite you to like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends and family as a show of support. This motivates us to keep sharing moving stories almost every day. Don't miss the next surprising story that's about to appear on your screen. We're so grateful to have you here with us. You can click on the links appearing on your screen now. We have an exclusive selection of captivating stories and guaranteed entertainment just for you. See you in the next video. Take care.